You know what, folks? Dan Campbell always answers the questions and tells it like it is.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome. Friday edition, Locked On Lions, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Matt Derry with you on this, say, Friday, August 22nd into Saturday, August 23rd. We are just less than 24 hours away from the last preseason game. We're going to have real football real soon. As we welcome you into Locked On Lions, thanks for making us your first listen and checking us out wherever you get your podcast. Please check us out, Locked On Lions on Instagram, Locked On Lions on TikTok. Yes, videos galore all over social media. Of course, follow me on all social platforms as well. Shout out to our everydayers that are out there. Appreciate all of you that watch or listen to the podcast daily. And that includes our man. He knows who he is, the Harbor Springs Insider. He's got some scoops coming my way very, very soon. Coming up on the program today, Jake Riepma. Some of you have checked out, and we want you all to check it out. The Lions Squad Show. It's brand new, live shows twice a week, including right after games. Lions Squad Show, wherever you get your podcasts, on the Locked On Lions. You can find them on the YouTube channel. Just go to the podcast and you'll see it. Jake Riepma is the host. Bradford Banta, who's been on our show a lot, former Lions player and coach. Natalie Kerwin, who you see on the Pistons games on FanDuel Sports Detroit. They are on the Lions Squad Show. We're going to have Jake on the show today, talk a little bit about his thoughts on this Detroit Lions team. Tomorrow, preseason game number 4, Houston Texans, 1 o'clock. Should be interesting, certainly, at Ford Field. Here's the one thing I'll say about this game. And I have a Graham Glasgow update at the end of the show. I got some other stuff to get to. Here's the one thing I want to bring up about tomorrow. 2 things. Number 1, if there's anybody that is so valuable and so in the plans for this team, like a hardcore starter, a guy that's going to be a major contributor, they have no business playing in this game tomorrow. That includes guys like Isaac Tesla. Tesla has been fantastic this preseason. I'm not playing him tomorrow. I'm not playing him in this game. I'm just not happening. No injuries. No, knock on wood, no injuries. All right. That's number 1. So guys like Broderick Martin that need to make the team, Eric Hallett needs to make the team. Some of the backup offense. I wouldn't even play Dan Skipper in this game. Some of the other backup offensive linemen, guys like that, fine. But anybody, I'm holding everybody out of this game. And I'll tell you who else I'm holding out of this game, and that is the guy that is going to be the backup quarterback, I at least think, September 7th, when your Leos travel to Green Bay, and that's Kyle Allen. I'm playing Hendon Hooker this entire game. Now, if Hooker gets hurt, Allen can dress. But I'm playing Hooker the entire game to find out what I have with him. And that leads me to my second point, which is, what are they going to do with this roster? And is Hendon Hooker, who's not been good in the preseason, is he locked into at least a 3rd spot? Dan Campbell, before yesterday's joint practice with the Texans, was asked about keeping 3 quarterbacks. And instead of dancing around it, like most coaches do, this is what aces do. Instead of just pawning it off, saying, we'll wait and we'll make that decision a little bit later on. No, he went into it. Quote, that's exactly what it is from Campbell. If you do that and keep 3 quarterbacks, you lose depth with the D-line or O-line or a receiver or a defensive back or a linebacker. You get the point. So how important is that relative to other positions? Campbell went on to say, quote, and what's hard is, look, you can call it what you want. When you have a year like we did last year, you get affected a little bit by it. It has an effect on the way you think, and depth. We got to make sure that we have the depth. End quote. I love this. Maybe this has just turned into a Dan Campbell stand show. Dan, maybe it's just become a shill fest for the coach. I love the guy. I love how transparent he is. He didn't have to be this transparent with that answer. They don't know. Today, they don't know. Maybe they do know. I think they want to take a long look at Hooker tomorrow. Yes, I know he was drafted 68th overall. He's a third-round pick. Brad Holmes loves holding on to his draft picks and giving them a chance. There's been guys that he's held on to for quite some time. Jamar Jefferson came to mind. Roderick Martin comes to mind. All right. They really were patient with Levi Onwuzurike for a long time. Right. And I know when they drafted Hooker the first year in 2023, they knew that season in 2023, he wasn't doing anything. He was holding a clipboard coming back from a torn ACL. But now he's 25 years old, or actually he was 25 at that time. Now 27. Time's running out for this kid. And Campbell kept it real. Last year, they went to 3 quarterbacks toward the end of the season because they just weren't comfortable with him. And they had Teddy Bridgewater ready for the end of the year. Teddy Bridgewater's in Tampa now. And by the way, I mention NFC teams a lot and teams that are in the mix. I don't mention Tampa enough as a team that I think has a chance to win the NFC. I'm not saying they're going to. I just think they have a chance. Although I'm just never been a Todd Bowles fan. I think when the going gets tough, when it's nut crunching time, and now I've said that term a couple times this week, I got to stop it. Todd Bowles looks like a deer in the headlights. His timeout usage in the playoff game a couple years ago was absolutely brutal. Anyway, Hendon Hooker should play the whole game. See what you have. Let it ride. And but it sounds like Dan Campbell saying, hey, I don't think we can afford to be carrying 3 quarterbacks, especially with all the injuries they have on defense. Again, not as bad as last year. We know that. But, Josh Paschal, now you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. Lee McNeil, yes, is on track, but he's not going to be until October, November. Same with Rodrigo. And Marcus Davenport's, had the injury history. Terrion Arnold has not been healthy up until now. Now he is. So we'll see. But Dan Campbell keeping it real about, hey, I don't know if we can afford to do this again. Got to have depth. All right. As promised, Jake Riepma is going to join us from the Locked On Lions, the Lions Squad Show is what it's called on the Locked On Podcast Network. We'll get to Jake next, and we'll end the show talking about Graham Glasgow. Not hearing anything at the time of this recording, I think, is good news. But I could refresh my social media in 2 minutes and holler back at something else. Jake coming up next. Locked On Lions today brought to you by our friends at Yahoo Fantasy. Oh my goodness gracious, it's the best time of the year, right? NFL kickoff is close, and that means fantasy football season is back in full swing. This year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with a fantasy football experience like never before. This year, me and Locked On Lions are playing on Yahoo Fantasy, and you should too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. All right. I've used Yahoo Fantasy for years, and the updates they're rolling out this month are wild, but really in the best way. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they just dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring team gets eliminated each week until there's only one team left standing. The season around the corner, now is the time to get your league together. Maybe you want to give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can still play in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/LockedOnNFL. All right, here he is, host of the Squad Show, the Lions Squad Show, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Our buddy Jake Riepma with us on a Friday edition of Locked On Lions. Jake, great to see you.
Hey, thanks for having me. This was long overdue. I've been looking forward to it, man. And have enjoyed the preseason coverage and content, but man, I am so ready for that regular season to start.
Oh, no question. All right, let's get right into it. You're hosting the Lions Squad show. Forget about the intros and all the stuff. I got to get into it. So yesterday's show, you and Natalie Kerwin are trying to talk about Matthew Stafford and Kelly Stafford, and Bradford's like, all right, next, stay on topic. It cracked me up. It was actually a very, very funny one-liner from Brad, huh?
Yeah, that's what you can expect on the Locked On Lions Squad show. There's no shortage of personalities, opinions, and maybe I guess if it's up to me to kind of keep the trains on the track, that's a scary proposition. That's not exactly my strength, and as you saw there, one little thing can set me off. And apparently, I mean, that was as organic reaction as you can have. Someone said Kelly Stafford, and I just went off into a tangent there. So obviously I've got some pent up feelings that I thought were fleshed out, but apparently not. So maybe on the Locked On Lions Squad show, it's also like Jake's therapy hour for me and just can get a lot of things off my chest. But no, it's been such a fun crew to get to know. And like I said, it's been, preseason stuff to kind of get things started, but Natalie Kerwin's been incredible. Bradford Banta, awesome to work with, and 20 years of NFL experience and collegiate coaching experience. He was at Michigan when Aiden Hutchinson was there. And obviously Natalie brings a wealth of experience, knowledge, and a great sense of humor. And it's been a really fun crew. And we appreciate you, promoting us as well, because it's more Locked On Lions content. And that's what the goal is. So it's been fun.
No, you got to look, if there's any opportunities to give the audience more content, I'm all for it. And I'm rooting for you guys. And certainly Natalie and Bradford have both been on my show. You've been on my show. So I know all of you pretty well. How often are you guys on? Tell my listeners that maybe don't know it exists, what the setup is and how it's going.
Yeah. We're kind of, taking the momentum from the post-game show last year and just continuing it. So we'll still have the immediate reaction post-game show, and it'll be the three of us, which will be fun. And then we'll do one weekly show live, which, of course, the more live viewers, the better, because we try to field some comments, throw out some opinions there for the live show, who's ever tuned in live. And that'll be on Thursdays at noon. So we'll have a Thursday noon show, and then a post-game show during the regular season. And then anytime the Lions play a Thursday game, so Thanksgiving, and then the following week, we'll do that live show on Tuesdays. But if you can't catch the live show, it's all right. It'll be posted. And, of course, wherever you get your podcast, the audio form. Did I say that correctly? Free and available wherever you get podcasts.
That's right. And I'm still going to do my shows on Sundays, too. So I love the idea of, all right, game ends, you guys come on right away for the instant reaction.
Yep.
And then I'm usually half hour to an hour after, because I want to hear what Dan Campbell has to say, make sure I give our listeners the injury stuff. So good 1-2 punch after games. You've also done a lot of the postcasts here the last year. So you're on Tigers tonight after Wings games and Pistons. So you're keeping an eye on everything, aren't you?
Yeah, trying to. And it's funny. I was actually looking back at some old Locked On Tigers post-game shows from last year at this time, and it was when lightning was caught in the bottle for this Tigers team last year, and literally 1% chance to make the playoffs, and all of a sudden they get so hot and go 32-14. It's been a little bit different this year. I'm not saying to get into cruise control, but certainly a nice lead in the American League Central. But the Locked On Tigers postcast audience has been awesome. Locked On Pistons postgame shows were a lot of fun this year, obviously with the playoff push there. But Locked On as a company, I think, has done a great job in expanding the content offerings for their listeners and their viewers. And I think that's ultimately what it's about. And in today's day and age, we all know we want that content as easy with least path of least resistance. So it's out there, and post-game shows after Tigers games, after Lions games, after Pistons games. It's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate everyone that's kind of done the, tune into Locked On Lions. Okay, catch the post-game show. Tune into Locked On Tigers, catch the post-game show, because that was really the idea and the design behind all of it.
The host of the Locked On Lions Squad show, Jake Riepma, with us. Of course, catch him tonight as well, following Tigers and Royals for the postcast there. That is, again, live on YouTube. All right, I mentioned this before you came on. To me, tomorrow, with Houston and the preseason game with the Texans, there is no reason, unless there's an injury, that Kyle Allen even plays. I'd play Hooker the whole game and see what you have. Do you agree? Do you think that maybe Dan Campbell would do that?
I do. I think we saw enough in that third preseason game. There I go, messing up without the Hall of Fame game. But that game against the Dolphins, that there's such a difference between Hooker and Allen, and he's solidified that number 2 role. And Bradford, Natalie, and I kind of had a discussion of, okay, yeah, Kyle Allen certainly beat out Hendon Hooker, but is he still the best possible choice for QB number 2? And I don't think there's anything that could be put on tape tomorrow against the Houston Texans that would change that in my mind. So to work backwards to get to the conclusion that there's no reason for him to be out there, I would absolutely agree with that. And for Hooker, man, you talk about where Jake Riepma was wrong. It was on Hendon Hooker, because I was so excited when they drafted him. And gosh, it's been a couple of years now, but I was still at 97 when the ticket then. And I remember thinking, this is just a perfect scenario. He can learn under Jared Goff. It's a team that obviously has a foundation and a culture, which we love saying, the culture, and such a great situation to be drafted into. It just hasn't materialized the way I expected, and probably a lot of people.
No, and I know there's a lot of people that are like, all right, what are the other options? What if the Lions decided against both Kyle Allen and Hendon Hooker? Can't go get Teddy Bridgewater anymore. Carson Wentz right now is playing golf every day in Carmel, Indiana. He's hanging out. I don't know if the Giants are going to let Jameis go because they've got Russell Wilson, they've got Dart, but would that be an option? I think they're just going to stick with Allen. And I think, like you said, regardless of what Hendon does tomorrow, I think they're only carrying 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah. And that's how I would expect them to play it out as well. The only other thought in my crazy brain, which nobody needs to know what that looks like, trying to formulate ideas and thoughts and whatnot. But the Browns, if they somehow carry, 4 or 5 quarterbacks, whatever it is, whoever is gets the short end of that ordeal, maybe. But again, at that point, you're starting to, again, formulate these a little bit more hypothetical ideas than actually realistic possibilities of playing out. And I just think on Friday, August 22nd into Saturday, August 23rd, let's look forward and ride with who we came with, Kyle Allen.
It's an interesting point you just made about the Browns, because they're not getting rid of Gabriel or Shador, I wouldn't think. Flacco's the starter for now. Pickett's been hurt. I don't know if they just let Pickett walk. Kenny Pickett, to me, as a backup, is an upgrade over Allen or Hooker, but I don't know if that's the route Brad Holmes is going to go,
Yeah, it's curious and certainly a compelling proposition from the standpoint that Kenny Pickett at one point put enough game tape out there that you would certainly give him the nod over Kyle Allen. But given the injuries and given how much time has elapsed since we saw that, and he's still a young enough guy, that is he worth a flyer? My mind would say yes. But there's the additional component of what you mentioned with Brad Holmes and how does that work from a team chemistry standpoint and other elements of, hey, we're bringing this guy in because he was the odd man out in a strange quarterback situation, and we didn't really love what we saw from our guys. What does that tell everybody else? And is the juice worth the squeeze for a backup quarterback when we all say, make no mistake about it, this team rides on the right arm of Jared Goff?
No question about it. What else do you want to see tomorrow? What else are you looking for in terms of? And to me, I said this before you came on. I mean, if there's anybody that they really, really love, they should not be playing. Tesla should not be playing. Even Kyle Allen should be playing in this game. But what do you want to see from this team tomorrow?
Yeah, the wide receiver room is obviously an easy talking point because it's on full display in the plays that some of those guys have made. Obviously, Tesla and what it's shaping out to hopefully be is going to be an absolute steal from the draft. Jackson Meeks, I think, has made some plays that he deserves. Kind of that part of the conversation of the benefit of the doubt that maybe this is a guy that you keep around. That can add some value. We talked a little bit defensively up front. Broderick Martin, I think, is another one that it just, for whatever reason, it just hasn't materialized into what the expectations were. And I know it was a little bit kind of a curveball draft pick when he was selected. I believe, and I don't quote me, I know it was middle rounds. I believe third round pick.
Yeah, he was a third rounder. Yeah,
out of Western Kentucky, and small school kid, and a lot of the pieces were there in terms of size, ability, and whatnot. But if it's not as high motor or whatever it is, I just haven't felt like he's done enough to establish himself as a guy in the middle of that defensive line in a position group of needs. So that's been a little bit disappointing. And outside of that, let's call it what it is. It's the fourth preseason game, for goodness sakes. And, to your point of what it feels like a little bit of water under the bridge, haze in the barn, whatever other coaching cliche you want to use. And I'm sure that entire staff is feeling that way. And the joint practice being kind of the final exclamation point at the end of training camp. And this is a little bit more of a formality, but at the same time, let's, if you're wearing a Detroit Lions uniform, like Dan Campbell said after the Hall of Fame game, there's a standard to uphold.
Final thing, how many wins for this team in your mind? Putting you on the spot.
Yeah, I like that. I think it's an 11-win team still. The division being as tough as it is, the schedule overall being as tough as it is, this is not a team that's gonna breeze through the way they did last year. I just think that some regression is unfortunately a realistic part of the equation. Not to say that I don't fully anticipate a three-peat in the NFC North and capitalizing on the learning experience of the postseason shortcomings from last year. And that's the only way that you can write the script and overcome that unfortunate development from last year and make it all worth it if you learn from it and make some noise in the postseason and get to where this team obviously has the expectations and realistic expectations to get to.
Jake Riepma with us, the host of the Locked On Lions Squad Show, all the postcasts. Great to see you, brother. We'll do it again later in the year.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it. And let's make this a thing. And I think the world of what you do and on Locked On Lions. I love tuning in every day.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. And our friends at Betterhelp bring us Locked On Lions today. As I said, this episode brought to you by Betterhelp. These days, it feels like there's advice for everything. Cold plunges, gratitude journals, screen detoxes. But how do you know what actually works for you? With so much information online about mental health and wellness, it can be overwhelming to figure out what's true and what will actually help. That's where we're talking to a licensed therapist through Betterhelp. They can make it the difference between all of that stuff. You get real personalized guidance instead of just guessing based on something you saw on social media. A lot of people right now going through a lot of different things. If you're looking to talk to somebody, I talk to my therapist once every 2 weeks. It really is a big help. With over 30,000 therapists, Betterhelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, serving more than 5 million people. It's easy to fit into your schedule. Just click to connect. You can even switch therapists anytime if you need to. Talk it out with Betterhelp. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Jake Riepma was great. We love having Jake on. Check out the show on the Locked On Lions Squad Show. He, along with Natalie Kerwin and Bradford Banta, bringing you extra content, and they'll be live after Saturday's game. They'll be live after all the games, and I appreciate Jake coming on the program today. All right, and check out Jake tonight, Tigers postcast right here on Locked On after the Tigers and Royals game. All right, very quickly to wrap up the show and to wrap up the week, I want to bring this up. It is now, as I'm recording here on a Friday, about 3 o'clock. No news yet on Graham Glasgow. If you recall yesterday, during the joint practice with the Houston Texans, the Lions starting center left practice under his own power with no assistance, just walked off the field, walked into the locker room, with what the team called a lower leg injury. What I think the good news is right now is that we have not heard today from any of the Lions beat writers or an Ian Rappaport or an Adam Schefter or Jordan Schultz, at least right now, as I'm recording, saying Graham Glasgow's got an MCL, an ACL, a sprained knee ligament, anything like that. We've heard nothing here on Friday. So that is good news. It is good news not hearing anything right now on the status of Graham Glasgow. Dan Campbell, I'm assuming, will be asked about it maybe on the radio pregame show tomorrow with Dan Miller, or on the radio side, or after the game. I'm certain hopefully somebody will ask Dan about it in the postgame following Lions and Texans tomorrow, 1 o'clock. Again, another Fox 2 game locally and also on the radio side on a 97.1 The Ticket. But Graham is very, very important to this team. And you know, I was a guy that was, I get things wrong. We all get things wrong. I really thought that this organization was doing everything in their power to make sure that Tate Ratledge was going to be the starting center for this club at the start of the year. They worked him so much at center during OTAs and everything else, and even rookie minicamp. But I think it turns out they know, hey, look, this guy was such a good right guard for so many years. And maybe eventually down the road, he'll move from right guard to center. That's what Frank Ragnow did. Remember, Ragnow was a center in college, though. His first year under the previous regime, he played guard for a year before becoming a center. But I'm assuming that at least this is good news, that we've not heard anything on Glasgow. Tomorrow, my assumption is that with a lot of the backups playing, that a guy like Kingsley Agwakin would be your starting center, at least for the preseason game tomorrow, as the Lions take on the Texans. All right, we're back again with you on Monday. We'll have a full recap of the game on Saturday, get you the PFF grades for the final time in the preseason. I will tell you this, that next week we will be recording our Locked On NFC North preview. So myself and the crew from the rest of the division will be together. Lauren Cox, of course, from Locked On Bears. Touchdown Bears. Luke Braun, the legend from Locked On Vikings. And oh yeah, that man, Pete Bukowski, Locked On Packers. The four of us will be getting together again next week. And we should have that show for you probably at the end of next week. So that should be fun. All right, everybody. Talk to you Monday. Enjoy Saturday's game if you're going down to Ford Field. And talk to you again on Monday.